All right, what's good, everybody? It feels good to be back on the mic here, back from Europe, ready to hop into it and get caught up on all things Celtics, all things NBA. We got a lot to talk about. We are going to be passing the rock. If you know that from following us, you know exactly what this is going to be here. But basically, Greg and I are going to go back and forth, just hitting some topics that we want to catch up on. Me and I, we haven't talked in a minute here. So this is going to be some fun. This is Coffee and C's. We are live here on a Friday morning on YouTube and Twitter. We're going to be trying to do a lot more of these. So if you're listening right now, appreciate you guys joining in. Feel free to get involved in the chat. But this is Green with Envy. Sit back, relax, and let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, it's your boy Will Ware. How you doing? How you living? Joining me today, as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast with that nice little graphic that they got underneath him here. It's the one and only Greg Manakis. What's good, my guy?
Oh, man, I'm excited to be here, dude. I kind of missed you. Not going to lie.
I know, man. I know. It's been, it's only been, you know what? I think we probably saw each other physically like 9 days ago, but not doing a podcast for a week, it just feels different. Like you said, man, I've missed you as well. Like I'm happy to be back here. I'll be honest, I don't feel that Europe time zone, man. Like being a full kind of like it's only like I think it's like 6-7 hours ahead, but the way that things happen, especially with what we're doing here, everything kind of happens at night. I still feel like I'm kind of catching up. So I'll be honest, I don't feel like I'm at the tip top of my game today, but I'm excited just to get back out here and be able to kind of shoot. Oh, of course, man. This is Coffee and C's. So this is going to be, for those of you listening right now, this is going to be a new segment that we're going to try and do. I want to say we're going to do it every Friday. Of course, there may be exceptions given our lifestyles, but mostly every Friday, we're going to try to go live here on YouTube and on Twitter, Coffee and Celtics. A great way to kind of recap the week of Celtics basketball, get you set up for anything that might be coming up, or talk about any big NBA topics that are out there looming. And for this particular week, I think it's going to be a lot of just, I need Greg to kind of fill me in on what I've kind of half been aware of and then what I've kind of missed out on. So we're going to go back and forth, and we're going to bring back an old segment that we haven't done here in a while, and we call it Passing the Rock. So let me cue it up here, Greg, just to make sure the uninitiated are now initiated.
You guys ready?
What's the plan, Bobby?
We're winging it, Jerry.
Yeah! I got the rock now! I got this motherfucker now! What?
Love that clip. Couldn't relate more right now to Andre 3000. What's the plan, Greg? We're winging it, Will. We're winging it right now. Kind of feels a little bit with where my mind's at. But so what's going to happen? Greg and I, we're just going to go back and forth for a little bit here. We're going to pass the rock on different topics that we want to talk about. And maybe if you guys stick around at the end, maybe at the end I'll do a couple of recaps of my trip to Ireland. And if you're in the chat, please feel free to join in here. Coffee and C's, great way to start the day. Could not agree more. Appreciate you for joining us here. So make sure if you guys have any questions, anything you want us to get to as part of Passing the Rock, put it in the chat. Come join us. We want to be interactive here. So, Greg, let me start with you, man. I want to hear what you got to say. I feel like you did a great, appreciated you holding it down while I was gone. Got to listen to your last podcast. Didn't see the visuals because I was listening to it while I was on the plane on the way back. But appreciate you holding it down here. But where do you want to start today? Passing the rock to you.
Well, classic Greg fashion. I'm not even going to start with a basketball topic. I'm going to start with Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. You watching tonight?
Well, first of all, I didn't even know that this fight was happening until it's been all over my social media for the last day and a half. Is it? I didn't know if it was tonight or Saturday or when it is. It's tonight.
Yeah,
apparently.
tonight. It's tonight.
It's on Netflix. Is it the Netflix thing?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. So if you have a Netflix subscription, Mike Tyson back in the ring. If you've been living under a rock, he's back in the ring tonight. It was supposed to happen, I think, in July, but Mike Tyson, being 58 years old, got an ulcer. Literally couldn't do the first fight. And everybody, when Mike Tyson got an ulcer, because he's like an old man, everybody's like, oh, there's no way they're going to actually go through with this fight. But they did. Tyson's in phenomenal shape. He looks great for being 50.
I mean, for a 60-year-old, yes. Like, I don't know, man.
Dude, did you see him at the press conference yesterday?
Yeah, I saw him smack. Was it Jake Paul, Logan Paul? One of them. He
Jake
smacked
Paul.
one of the Paul
Jake Paul.
brothers. Yeah, he smacked Jake
Yeah.
Paul. Yes, I mean I get it. For a 60-year-old, the dude's in amazing shape. He looks in amazing shape. Like it's still a 60-year-old man. And I get the appeal. It's Mike Tyson. Honestly, I didn't have it on my to-do list for the weekend. So TBD. Like, what time is the fight? Is it like
I'm
it's like a
sure it's
usual fight
happening.
like
So
10
it's in
p.m. or
Dallas.
something?
It's in Dallas. I'm sure it's going to
Oh, is it really?
happen. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to happen probably around 11 o'clock our time, 12,
Mhm.
12 Eastern. But I'm watching it. You can come over if you want. Hazard and my guy Mikey Sinclair from my work, they're both coming over. We're going to watch it in the backyard. I'm going to have it projected on the screen. So come on. We'll
Yeah,
drink
I
some hot
might join you.
cocoa,
It's the
build a
novelty of
fire.
it is interesting. I'll be honest, this was not something heavily on my radar until my Twitter was inundated with it. Which, by the way, there's a great Tyson clip going around where it's this like the sweet girl who's like 11 years old or something.
Jazzy World TV. She does great interviews.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's doing a great interview. And Tyson gives probably a little of the most Tyson answer you could ever give an 11-year-old about who cares about anyone after they're dead. It was basically what he's saying
Yeah.
about
She
we're
asked
all
him,
gonna
she's like,
die for 2 minutes.
what does this fight mean for your legacy? And he just like stares at her. Legacy is just another word for ego. What is ego? Right? It's just something that everyone's latched onto. And what does it matter? Because when you're dead, you're just gonna be dust. And she's just like, I never thought of it that way. Yeah, thank you for sharing. No one's ever
So
given
she
me
does a
that
great
answer.
job. She's
just
super
so sweet.
composed. She keeps it together. She's very. What's her name again? I have seen her before a couple other,
Jazzy. It's
big
like
events.
Jazzy World TV or something like. She's
Okay.
been doing
Yeah,
interviews with like super famous celebrities since she was like 7.
yeah, I saw her at like the Super Bowl or something. I like when I saw the Tyson clip when I was like, oh, I've seen this girl before. But yeah, intense answer for an 11-year-old there, Iron Mike. But it's Iron Mike. I mean, I don't know what we would have expected to happen in that scenario other than something similar to what happened. So we'll see, man. I'll be honest. Like I said, not on my radar. I saw the smack. I generally have kind of avoided some of these like Paul fights. I just am not that interested in them fighting YouTubers when they want to fight like an actual boxing guy. If they win, yeah, that's which I know. Is this the guy that fought Tyson Fury's brother?
Yes.
Okay, and he lost, right?
He lost to Tommy Fury. Yeah, it was a relatively close fight though, but that was the only true professional boxer that he's ever fought.
Yeah, and that's kind of for me where I lose it a little bit. I'm like, okay, you're the one actual boxer you fought, you lost, and we're like, I'm supposed to make a big deal about you. I don't know. Good promotion. I get it. The Paul brothers do their promotion thing, but Mike Tyson is a name that intrigues me. So we'll see. I might pop on over. We'll have to see how I'm feeling. Still recovering from that jet lag a little bit here, but all right. I'm gonna pass the rock back to myself here,
Okay.
and I'm gonna get into a little bit of NBA talk. Number one, I got to shout out to our guy Adam Taylor. I don't know how he does it. That time difference. I get the struggle, my friend. We talked about it for many years. I do get it. But I'm gonna take just kind of a general look because I want you to be able to take this wherever, Greg. It's still early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting later and later that it's not that early in the season. Like we're getting closer to that. Like you still got to say it's early in the season. But the Eastern Conference, man, can we just get a couple teams that are playing consistent basketball over 500? As we're recording this, there are 3 teams over 500. One of those teams is the Orlando Magic, who is 7-6, and they're actually without their best player. Shout out to Franz Wagner, who's actually, at least based on the stats, haven't had a chance to watch him in the last week or so, has been balling out. But the Celtics, the Cavaliers, 13-0, Celtics 10-3, big matchup coming up this Tuesday. Can't wait for that one. That's going to be exciting. You got the Magic at 7-6, and then you have the Knicks at 5-6, all the way down to the Bucks at 4-8. And that's not even counting the Sixers down there at 2-9. Like Greg, it seemingly these slow starts for specifically the Sixers and Bucks. As much as I want to violently overreact to them, I can't because they're both collectively 2-3 games out of just being back in that 4-5 seed, which is kind of where we expected them to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, when does it stop being, or when does it start not being so early for the Eastern Conference? Is kind of my question.
Pretty soon. We're almost at the 25% mark through 82 games, right? We're 13 games in right now. In terms of like panic meter, I would say if I'm the Knicks, it's probably at like 6 out of 10, just because there's a lot of good stuff happening there, but they don't have any depth. They have no depth
Yeah.
whatsoever. And there's a lot of Deuce McBride happening. They need somebody. I mean, go get Lonnie Walker. Go get somebody that can help you off the bench. I don't know. The Knicks, I
they're
would
burning a
definitely be
lot of minutes. I mean, that's a Tibbs classic, right? Tell me you've heard this
Mhm.
before. Tibbs plays his guys a lot of minutes, and when you're 5-6 and you're playing your guys a lot of minutes, and if the end of that Knicks Bulls game the other night was really exciting. They made a huge comeback to get back into that game. Josh Hart has the foul on Kobe White's afro that ends up being the
That was
3
so
free
funny.
throws. That was, and I was watching it. It reminded me a little bit of was it the Buddy Hield game last year where there was the foul call or the non-foul call on the head, and it was kind of that, but he hit the afro. He didn't actually touch his body, but his like forearm hit the afro, and he knew it. You saw Josh Hart didn't really argue it, but you're expending that much energy on a whatever that was, a Wednesday night against the Bulls, and you're still coming away with a loss when Karl-Anthony Towns puts up 46 points or whatever he had. Like that's tough to swallow in the long term when you're looking at what that does to your team.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them. Same thing with the Bucks. I know that we're kind of talking about like pretenders or contenders, but thinking about the Bucks, it's a lot of Giannis just putting the Superman cape on. He's leading the league in like restricted field goal attempts by like over 40, total for the season. He's just like getting to the rim every single possession when he can. But the Bucks, looking at the Eastern Conference, they're 4-8 right now, but kind of PR spin zone here. 4 of those losses are to the top 2 teams in the East. 2 losses to the Celtics, 2 losses to the Cavs. Played both teams decently well in those games. So if I'm a Bucks fan, I'm not freaking out yet. You're half a game out of a play-in spot. You're 1 game out of the 6th seed.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You're
That's
one
why
and a
it's
half game. You're 1.5 games away from home court advantage. You're going to be okay.
It feels like it should be more of a panic, but because the rest of the East is so mediocre, it's like you can't get too worked up about it. But let's look at the Sixers and the Bucks here for a second.
Okay.
Who long term? Never mind, because they're seeding, like the East is still so mediocre. They're gonna find a way to recover and get seeding. Like I just can't get too consumed with that. But long term, when you look at those two teams and the way things are starting, and you're projecting, okay, what moves can they make? Here's how they look right now. The Cavs and the Celtics look like they're just putting themselves at least early on in just a separate category. Magic, they get Paolo back, we'll see. But it's, Bucks and Sixers. Who are you more worried about long term that they can? I mean, you picked the Bucks to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, even though they were going to be a lower seed. Who are you more worried about as of right now on November 15th?
Like if I were a fan of that team?
As far as
a Celtics fan, who am I worried about?
As a Celtics fan, which of those teams are you more worried about that they could get it together and present it?
Gotcha. I would say the Bucks still. I just think Giannis is such a force. If he's healthy for 7 games and Chris Middleton's healthy for 7 games, I think that they still at least present enough issues for the Celtics with their size. We've seen the biggest issue for the Celtics this year has been their inability to rebound the ball and their inability to protect the basket. Obviously, Porzingis changes a lot of that, but that's my issue when I see the Celtics go up against bigger teams is can they actually get to the rim? They're like bottom of the league and, restricted field goal attempts in the game. They don't get to the basket at all. They shoot a ton of threes. They shoot a ton of above the break threes, and they're shooting great percentages on those. I actually have some numbers on that we can get into later. But like, is that shooting going to be sustainable? If the Bucks just say we're going to protect the paint, we're going to force you off the 3-point line and send you into Giannis and Lopez, that's an issue. With the Sixers, I still think they can present some problems, right? They have Embiid. If he can get to 80% of what Joel Embiid was at his MVP form, he's still formidable. They have Paul George. Yeah, got to get on the floor. And then Maxey, when Maxey comes back, he's one of those like water bug type guards that can give the Celtics some issues. So they have, they gave the Celtics some issues a few years ago when Jason Tatum, put the Superman cape on in Game 7 there. But, when you replace Tobias Harris with Paul George, that is an upgrade. Yabusele is an upgrade. McCain looks great. If he can figure out a way to become their sixth man off the bench, that's a problem for the Celtics. He looked good in the game against the Celtics. I forget if it was preseason or early in the season, but whenever he played them, I was like, oh, McCain looks pretty good. He's strong. He had 30 points the other night. Real quick on the Sixers, McCain was their best player on the court the other night against the Cavs. And the last 5 minutes of the game, he barely touched the ball. It was like mostly Reggie Jackson. Like Reggie, I love you, beastie guy, but like the ball should have been in McCain's hands. Nick Nurse,
McCain's been hooping out here.
Yeah,
he's been hooping out here. I think it's so with both of these teams. I'm with you. I think it's probably the Bucks, since I just trust Giannis to be there more, right? Like that's probably the tiebreaker. If you're a Philly fan, you're still just holding out hope because you've had, out of your 3 stars, they haven't played a game together. And just even having 2 out of 3 available, I think it's 2 out of the first, 12 games or whatever it's been for them right now, 11 games that you've actually had even 2 out of the 3 available. So I think that's where you're just holding out like, hey, we haven't seen our team yet, right? We still don't know what our team looks like. And now you get McCain, who's been playing well. Yabu's had a couple of moments where he's playing well. And these are going to be, role guys. They're going to slot into these different positions when you do get, but Maxi's still out for a little bit. Paul George and Embiid are still on. Supposedly, Paul George is off of, whatever rest regiment that they have him on. Embiid, who the fuck knows? Who knows with Embiid? Like, that guy comes back for 1 game, he's gone, he's in and out. And, like, you want to have some. Actually, I don't want to have any sympathy for Joel Embiid. Who am I kidding? But others may want to have sympathy for his injuries, but it's like they don't disclose them. So it's like, I don't know. Is he just like out? Like, what's the deal? Like, the Sixers are doing some of this to themselves with their bad PR of just not explaining, oh, hey, it's this injury or that injury. It's they're just being very shisty about it for whatever reason. And so that adds to the annoyance of just kind of, I just want to dislike everything about Joel Embiid and the Sixers. And so I think with Giannis, like the Bucks, I think are still a complete mess because everything relies on Giannis. Middleton will help a little bit, but I just don't see the guy that had double ankle surgeries after coming off a season in which he was already banged up and getting older, and he's been banged up the last 2 years. I just don't see that being your savior on both sides of the ball. So it'll be interesting, but I think the East is definitely a little bit of a mess. And it's funny when you just look out West, so many teams that are at or above 500, and you don't even have the Timberwolves and the Mavericks currently in the playoffs this early in the season. So the West is just certainly a different beast. But Greg, let's throw it back to you here. What do you got next?
Real quick before I
one more
take
thing,
the
King.
rock.
What else would this be without a one more thing, King?
Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden played 16 games together total for the Brooklyn Nets. Are you taking the over or under on the Sixers big 3, quote unquote big 3? I'm going to do air quotes with 3 fingers.
Yeah.
Are they going over 16 games or under 16 games?
Great question.
Just this year.
Okay. Just this year. Give me the under, man. I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't like the vibes. I don't like the vibes in Philly right now. It just feels like nothing is lining up. Give me the under. You're gonna miss a bunch of Embiid games. Likely Paul George is getting hurt. I mean, here's the thing. Maxey is the outlier in this because he's been very healthy. He's younger, but he had to do so much just for a little bit of stretch with nobody around him, right? And I'm not saying that necessarily led to the injury, but he's going to be, when he's back, it's like, Maxey, thank God you're back. You're the one guy we can rely on night to night. And then you're just going to get, Paul George and Embiid doing their thing. So great question. I'll take the under. I'll be shocked if I'm right, but I'll take the under.
Okay. I love it. All right. I'm going to go a little negative here just for a second. I'm just going to ask a question.
You never go negative. I like when you go negative.
I'm going to ask 2 questions. Will, who's my favorite player in the Celtics?
Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, right. Everybody knows I'm a huge Jaylen Brown guy. What happened to Jaylen Brown, mid-range assassin?
Ooh, okay. I like where this is going. Speak more to this.
Last year, he shot 43%, 22, 23, 47%, 21, 22, 46%. If you look at like the best mid-range players in the league, like DeMar DeRozan always leads the league in mid-range attempts. He's normally between like 47 and 49%, right? So Jaylen's pretty efficient in the mid-range. This year, Jaylen Brown is shooting 8 for 24 in the mid-range, which is 33%. Overall, Jaylen Brown's shooting numbers are pretty god-awful.
I was looking at that earlier, actually.
Yeah, the free throws, which were looking good at the beginning of the year, he's starting to Even despite the big cleansing breath that Jalen is taking at the line this year, it's still not looking great at the line. I don't have the percentages of what they are. I don't know if you can look that up for me, but
76% right now from the line.
76%, right? He was in the mid 80s early in the season, back to 76%. So that means over the past probably
He is getting there
6 or
8 times
7
a game.
games.
One thing I did look up earlier, both he and Tatum in the top 5 and getting to the line this year, which is an encouraging sign.
Quick tangent. Jason Tatum. Stop shooting the technical free throws when Derek White and Peyton Pritchard are on the court. What's up, man? I feel like he shoots like 50% on the technical free throws.
It's so stupid. It's the superstar rule, right? The superstar just gets to take it. And I like when you have 290%, and Peyton Pritchard did miss 2 the other night, but when you have 290+% free throw shooters, just default to them. Just let them take it.
Yeah,
I agree.
They're better free throw shooters than you, Tatum. So that's my question. What happened to Jaylen Brown, mid-range assassin?
Yeah, I was actually looking because this morning I woke up and I was just kind of like perusing through just like different stats and man, yeah, just the Jaylen Brown efficiency stats are not great. Just the shooting splits, the 42% from the field, under 30% from the 3-point range, and then like you said, that free throw percentage, which was up at about the mid 80s, is now down to like the mid 70s, which mid to low 70s is kind of where Jaylen Brown lives as a free throw shooter. It's a great question, and this isn't all tied to do this. I hate the do the Celtics shoot too many threes. It's all about the process, right? Like I don't really care how many threes they shoot, but the only 2 guys on the Celtics team that I will ever probably really get frustrated with shooting threes is Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, only because when they drive the basketball, when they get to their spots, typically they're so good. And Jason Tatum has been unreal this year when he's driving the basketball. He's added a little bit more mid-range, but with Jaylen Brown, he's getting to the line a lot more. I mean, him at 8, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure 8 free throws per game would be a career high for Jaylen Brown.
Yeah,
like
I think he was at like 5 or 6 last year.
Yeah, he's usually much like I was surprised to see how that both he and Tatum were at 8 per game. Like that caught me by surprise when I was looking at that this morning. And with Jaylen, I don't really have the answer as to what's happening there other than let me see a little bit more and let's see if it kind of balances out. Because when Jaylen Brown is going into his bully ball bag and gets to that kind of mid-range elbow spot, that is usually where I love Jaylen Brown. That's where I want Jaylen Brown to be. That's where I think in the past you've said he feels very, his footwork feels like T-Mac Kobe-ish a little bit, right? Like when he gets to some of those spots. And I don't know. I was just because I was, like I said, I've been away and I was trying to catch up on some of the games. I did catch the Nets game the other night, and there were a few shots that he did take where it felt like maybe it was just the flow of the offense and he got to those spots late. And so he wasn't able to have as much time to make the moves he wanted to. And he just ended up in really, really tough fadeaway jump shots in the mid-range area. And so one of the things that I would probably have to take a little bit of a closer look at is what types of those shots is he getting, right? Is he getting them at the end of the shot clock? Is he getting them, in his spot where he has time to do his kind of up fakes, use his body, get into it? But the overall just efficiency of Jaylen Brown is something that I'm kind of keeping my eye on. So I think it's interesting that you brought up this point of just his mid-range game, which is usually one of his bread and butters, being an area that's kind of been betraying him so far this year.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up his shout out to StatMuse for this. So this is Jaylen Brown's shot chart this season. You can kind of see his field goal percentage versus league average. So if we go to, let's just grab something here. So he's shooting right here 16.7% from the left free throw line area. The league average is 37.5%. From the nail, he's shooting 44. So he's shooting about league average from the nail, 44%. League average is 43%. You get into the paint, he's shooting 53.8%, probably within 5 feet of the basket. Right there, league average 49%. He's only shooting 60% in the restricted area this year. So that's an issue. That he's normally up around 70%. And then when you come out to the 3-point line, from the I always get confused which side of the court is. From the left wing, he's shooting 7.7% from the left wing, from the right wing, 32%. Right. So like his numbers just overall aren't looking great with his shot, but hopefully that changes. You know, he was fighting through some injuries. He put on a bunch of muscle in the offseason. Sometimes that can mess with your mechanics. But, you know, I've always been concerned about Jaylen Brown's jump shot, that he was never a good shooter. He started to become a better shooter through hard work, but he's not like a natural great shooter, right? There's a reason why he's actually a better shooter when he does things like shoot, you know, kind of turnaround fadeaways over his right shoulder, because it's just like a more rhythm shot for him. Whereas when he's at the free throw line, he has to think about it. When he's at the 3-point line, he has to think about it a little bit more. And, you know, with someone who's not a natural shooter, it can just be an issue. So just something I'm keeping an eye on. I just wanted to start with something a little bit different than normal, because normally I'm on here just singing Jaylen Brown praises.
Well, I like that. With that, I had a potential topic that involved Jaylen. So let's just keep it going with the Jaylen train here. I don't know if I got your thoughts about Jaylen versus Giannis, the childish Giannis Antetokounmpo, which now Nike got themselves involved with after you mentioned earlier. Giannis had 59 the other night, and they put out a tweet, nothing childish about him. So I'm just curious to get your thoughts on this. You were watching it in live time when, you know, Giannis throws that elbow, which, by the way, so just in general, Giannis's elbows might be the scariest weapon in the league. That's not technically
scariest
a weapon,
elbow
but they are
since
weapons.
Dwight Howard.
Yeah, and so I know, I can't remember who, I think it was a Heat Pistons game last week where Bam was coming through the lane with a Euro step and his elbows out, and I think Tim Hardaway went down kind of scary on a play like that. And man, here's the thing, the evolution of basketball with bigs taking on the Euro step, it's not an illegal move, but that is so scary when they come through with those elbows. And it's one thing when it's a 6'5" guy coming through, or a 6'2" guard, you know, which is where the Euro step was really, you know, it was the Manus of the league that were doing it and stuff. And it's like, oh, that's a cool way to kind of slither around. James Harden can find his way to the basket.
Dwayne
now
Wade,
these big guys are taking it on, that is terrifying when they come through. And they're so big, it's not necessarily their fault, and I don't want the NBA to turn this into, we got to make this a new Zaza thing, and we got to look at every single time. But that shit is terrifying when that happens. And so this wasn't that, the Giannis and JB. This was just straight up kind of a dirty play, if I'm being honest. Just cold clock the elbow back. And so, you know, Jaylen responded with, nah, fuck you, bro. Like, I'm not into this. And then, you know, Giannis does the third grade too slow.
I thought that was hilarious, man. I really thought
I kind of did
funny.
too. This is why I wanted to get your thoughts on it, because like I only saw the media reaction the day after, and it was, some people liked it, some people were all on Team JB, especially JB calling Giannis childish afterwards. What was your take on it?
Jaylen doesn't like Giannis. I mean, that was my take on it. They've had a lot of battles. Jaylen's dunked on Giannis, you know, a ton of times in his career, and the elbow was dirty. That was a dirty play. So Giannis putting his hand out for Jaylen. You know, Jaylen goes to like smack his hand, like, all right, man, like, you know, I'll be tough with you. You know, you're gonna elbow me, like I'm gonna get you back, which he did later in the game. I don't know if you saw the hard foul that he had on Giannis, but he just wound up and just hit him in midair. And that's why I love Jaylen. But I thought it was really funny that Giannis actually did that, and the fact that he like literally went like that over his hair. I thought it was really funny. So, you know, I love Jaylen for reacting that way, just because that's who Jaylen is. He's kind of a dog. But I thought it was funny as a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I just listen. The NBA as a product needs more beef, right? It needs more contention. It needs it in this way. And so I really like it that now when the Celtics play the Bucks next, that clip's running, right? And there's a little bit of tension that you can feel. There should be more tension in the NBA, right? Like it's a little bit too friendly at times. And so I think that conflict, much like when you try to find a good TV show, you need a good conflict that's going to draw you in. Like this makes what's already a compelling, just from a basketball standpoint of what we like to watch, that's compelling to us. Now it has this extra layer to it that I think builds into it. And then you add in Nike coming over the top after the, you know, Giannis's 59 point. Jaylen tweets out, I think he said, y'all have weird energy or something from it, which I also love. Like, I love this Nike Jaylen Brown beef. And it's funny that Jaylen, to me, I thought it was funny. And there were people defending, like, or saying that, you know, Nike should like stay out of this, whatever. Like, dude, this is good for business. This is good for all business right now. If Nike's out there throwing shade, it's the same way that if a team throws
good for
shade
741 shoes, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. This is good for everybody involved. And I love the weird energy. It's like, Jalen, you also put out a diss song to Nike. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this
Yeah.
is clearly going to be a thing. Like, you're
Yeah.
not known as an artist and you put out an entire song dissing Nike. Like, of course
Yeah.
they're going to come back. So I kind of love the energy that's developing between Jalen and Giannis, Jalen and Nike. I'm here for the drama, here for the beef. I like it.
Before we pass the rock, I want to finish up this elbow thing that you're bringing up. I thought that was really interesting what you just said about bigs now doing the Euro step with the high elbows. But it got me thinking over the past, since we've been watching basketball, who would you say top 5 scariest elbows in the game?
Okay, well, you mentioned
Giannis got to
Dwight.
be up
Giannis, yeah, Giannis is up. Giannis and Dwight, I think, are the easy ones. Embiid, I'm going to
Shaq.
put in there too. Shaq, yeah, well, because Shaq was just throwing him around just to make a point. I feel like I'm trying to think of maybe Karl Malone. Karl Malone, I feel like was
Karl
big,
Malone.
and then getting in there. Dennis Rodman as well. But Dennis Rodman was doing it like as a purpose. Like I don't like,
Mm.
him and Draymond did it with like the intent of I want to do this because I'm a little bit undersized and also I'm a little crazy. You don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Like they did it for that reason. Some of these other guys were just doing it to because they're just big and tough. So I think Karl
Okay, so
Malone.
we got
Dwight,
let's recap. So
yeah,
Karl Malone, Shaq, Dwight, Giannis, Draymond, I like that. Dennis Rodman, that's 6. I'm
Yep.
gonna throw Alonzo Mourning into there.
Yeah, I could see that. I was thinking Pat Ewing as well. He was another guy that I was thinking about that could, and in like the nicest way possible, David Robinson. But he's just because he's kind of Giannis like in like his build,
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of those big physical '90s guys, and then it's some of these like I'm trying to think
The Davis
like
brothers.
outside of who'd you say?
The Davis brothers, Ben Wallace.
Oh yeah. I had to give me a second. I was thinking Anthony. I was like, Anthony Davis has a brother. Then I realized
Dale
you're talking about,
Dale and
Davis.
Antonio. Yeah.
Yeah,
Dale and Antonio,
yeah.
Ben Wallace. I said that's 10
Yep.
right there. Is there anybody that's not a big man that has like scary elbows?
See, that's the thing. It's just like, and this, I mean, it's not the same as the whole Joel Embiid reporter thing, but depending on what happened, when it's called assault or it's a shove, it's like, oh, when it's a 7'2" dude and this guy's, 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", whatever, like a brush of the shoulder from a 7'2" guy to a 5'10" guy is like you doing that to a toddler. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna it's like the impact is so different. So that's why I think it's just harder to be as ferocious the smaller you are in the landscape of the NBA. That I don't really have anyone outside of big men that I think I'd put in there.
Okay, well, Jokic. I'm going to throw Jokic in there. Jokic
That's another
definitely
big
uses
man,
those
but yeah.
elbows. I'm going to go Corey Maggette. Corey Maggette.
Interesting.
I feel like
I don't remember his elbows being as dangerous, but tell me what you remember about his dangerous elbows.
I mean, just in general, I think Corey Maggette was just such a physical freak that whenever he would, use his body, his elbows, I think he from what I remember about Corey Maggette, I haven't watched Corey Maggette tape in a while, but just, my 12-year-old brain remembering watching Corey Maggette, I remember thinking I would not want to get hit.
When you were watching tape because the Celtics almost traded Paul Pierce for him. That's probably what you remember.
That's crazy. That's a crazy
alternate timeline. That's by the way, for those of you that go fact check that, Corey Maggette for Paul Pierce was a real consideration at one point before the Big Three era happened. So just remember, sometimes it's the trade you don't make.
Yeah, so I think this would be cool if our listeners out there, if you could just put, throw some guys with crazy mean elbows over the past, 30 years or however long you've been watching basketball. You've been watching basketball 45 years. Maybe we're missing some people. I'm sure you'll hear like a Bill Laimbeer in there and stuff like that. Maybe some Robert Parrish, yeah. Kurt Rambis. Yeah. So let us know the meanest elbows in NBA history. I would love to see a good list of that. All right,
Greg, what you got? Let's pass the rock back to you.
I'm gonna go positive here. Jason Tatum. First time, and it's only 13 games, but first time over 70% within 5 feet of the rim. He is 77% in the restricted area, which is a top 30. I think it's like a top 30 percentage, but he's 33rd% in the league in restricted area field goal attempts. 33rd in the league, restricted area field goal attempts. So some names around him in terms of field goal attempts: Jalen Williams for OKC, Vucevic, Mo Wagner, Tari Eason, Christian Braun, Zion Williamson, Jeremy Grant, Zach Edey, Benedict Mathurin, Jason Tatum. Right underneath him, Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, and Jalen Green. right? So Tatum's getting to the rim a lot more with a lot more success, and he's starting to climb up there. I would love to see him go from 33rd% in restricted area field goal attempts per game to like the 20 area. I think that would be good. If he can jump above Jalen Williams by the end of the year, I think that would be really nice to see.
Yeah, Jason Tatum, I've said this since last year. When Jason Tatum goes to the basket, good things happen. Very rare does anything bad happen when Jason Tatum goes to the basket, whether it's him getting, making the bucket, whether it's him now getting to the line 8 times a game, whether it's him getting the assist. So there's so many positive results that can happen with him going to the basket. And that's why I said earlier, there's only 2 guys in this team when it comes to 3-point shots that I'm ever going to get frustrated with. And it's going to be Jalen and Jason, because they're the 2 guys in this team that when you look at their ability, and specifically Tatum's, to just get downhill and get in the paint, whether it's a post up, whether it's a drive, just good shit happens time and time again. And so I understand the numbers. I understand the math with the 3-point shot. And Tatum's having an unreal year. Tatum is second, maybe third in MVP, in the early season here right now. You can make a case he's number 1, actually. He's been that good. And so it's hard to nitpick, but it's the one thing I'm always looking at is Jason Tatum, especially when we play teams, like you mentioned before. When we play teams like the Bucks that are super big, you're going to have to kind of set up that shot outside to then be able to go inside. But I loved watching that Nets game the other night, especially when Claxton was off the court. Tatum was just going to the hoop. Didn't matter if they have 2 guys, 3 guys. Come here. I'm eating my lunch today. I'm going left. I'm going right. Talk about somebody who's now weaponizing that Euro step in a whole different manner. Him going from one side of the rim to the other, using his length. Jason Tatum is really becoming one of the most unstoppable players when he's getting to the basket. And it's just because he's evolved so much as a player that when he gets there, whether it's he's going to get fouled, he's going to make the basket, he's going to make the right pass, he's going to make the right play. There's so many options that can happen. That's just always what I'm looking for. Is I'm at my happiest watching. Like, it's cool when Jason Tatum gets hot from 3. I'm much happier when Jason Tatum gets hot going to the basket, which is not really a phrase that you hear a ton. But when he gets the mindset of just continually going downhill and even getting into that mid-range, I actually, just from an aesthetics view of watching Jason Tatum, I prefer that Jason Tatum versus the Tatum that goes 7 of 13. Just from what I like to watch Jason Tatum do, I like it when he's near the basket.
I agree. And, I was actually interested to see his post up stats, because I feel like he's become just like better at getting to the line and whatnot in his post up opportunities. He actually doesn't have great post up numbers this year, though. So he is averaging 0.97 points per possession on post ups. That's 8.4% of his possessions are post up opportunities. He's only in the 55th percentile on post up opportunities. Jaylen Brown, on the other hand, he is 1.39 points per possession, and it's 97.5th percentile. So Jaylen Brown, free throw frequency, he's getting fouled on 39.1% of his post up opportunities, which is crazy. 13% and 1 frequency on that. Compared to Jason Tatum, he is getting free throw frequency, 20.7%. He's getting fouled on his post up opportunities. Just some things to keep an eye on.
Yeah, no, I think in general, like I said, these are going to be the 2 guys that I'm really okay with them taking less than 8 threes a game most times. Like, if they're hot, go for it. I just like to see these guys getting downhill. Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Al Horford, KP when he gets back. Of course, KP, it's a little bit different. You can get him in the post as well, but let that thing fly. Let them have 10 threes a game. I'm totally happy with those guys having, Drew Holiday, same thing, getting those type of 3 numbers up. But when the Celtics live, I think, in a little bit more of that 46 to 48 3-point attempt range, and it's really just the Jays that are taking 2 or 3 less threes, that's kind of my happy spot with where this team's at. But they're 10-3. Hard to talk about any type of bad results here. But what do you got, Greg?
Just continuing to look at the post up stats, I'm fascinated by this. Leading the league in effective field goal percentage in post up opportunities is Mo Wagner. I'm going to throw him out just because he's not like a real player. Jaylen Brown is actually number 1 in the league in effective field goal percentage for post up opportunities. 73.3%. Vucevic
And that
is
feels
next.
like that's I would venture to guess that's a lot of his bully ball, right? Is those moments. Exactly. And that's the Jaylen Brown where I think this year it's felt the most comfortable, right? The mid-range jump shot, the 3-point jump shot hasn't felt, as good as it can be. And even when you went back to some of the stats that you pulled up from StatMuse, like that's probably the area where it was like, okay, this is where Jaylen Brown is league average, clearly above league average right now when he's utilizing that skill set of his.
Highest free throw frequency in the league on post-ups, Jaylen Brown.
Love it. Love to see. I mean, I'm impressed that just when you look at free throws per game, I mean, it's Giannis, it's Anthony Davis, and then it's the Jays. Like that's legitimately Paolo and Zion are in the mix, but they both only played 5-6 games. So out of the guys that have played the majority of games, it's Giannis, it's AD, and then it's the Jays. So this is once again getting into the paint is doing wonders.
Get the ball to
Jays.
Jaylen Brown in the post. He's second in the league. So the only person with the higher percentile is Devin Booker in terms of their 100th percentile. So Jalen's second in the league in post-ups, like just efficiency and everything. That's really
seems
impressive,
like a good play.
Jaylen.
Seems like a good play. All right, you want to do one more pass in the rock, or do you want to do a little Greg and Will catch up here for the next 10-15 minutes?
I went first, so I think you got one more to go, and then we can do
I did back to back as well. So
you did?
I did, yeah, because we had the Jaylen one, and then there was maybe I didn't. Actually, you're right. I'll do one more. Okay, I'll do one more.
Okay.
I got one more. I got one more Celtics related one here. So preseason, we were kind of on the Luke Cornett hype train. It has slowed down considerably in the regular season.
What? I had a dream Luke Cornett shot a 3-pointer last night.
Hey,
he missed it. Maybe it was short. Even in my
not
dream,
a good omen.
A Luke Cornett 3 was short. Go ahead, continue.
Well, if Jay Billis is doing games, he's still holding out hope for it. So maybe Luke Cornett will end up shooting a 3 here. But my point was going to be, so Neemias Queta has started to really get some serious run here and has kind of overtaken Luke Cornett as far as the spots go from below Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis when he comes back. And so is Neemias Queta actually the one living up to the hype that we gave Luke Cornett in the offseason that is going to be a potential difference maker for the Celtics?
Yes. Yeah. And I think, when the Celtics eventually have to move on from Al Horford and from Kristaps Porzingis because of cap implications, I think Queta is going to get a real look as the starting center of the future. I don't know that he's going to be able to do that just like with increased opportunity and whatnot. As long as he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be a pretty solid NBA player. Just because of his,
got to cut down on some. He still has moments where he just has these like the beginning of that Nets game.
Oh yeah,
he had 2 fouls in the first like 3.5 minutes where it was like, man, you can't do that.
He's the perfect second or third big on a team.
Yeah, and maybe he'll mature and develop into more at a different point. But right now, that totally isn't. And you mentioned earlier the weak spots of the Celtics right now are their interior defense and their rebounding. Right, those are 2 spots that kind of really stick. I was looking at it earlier today, Greg. Actually, so last year, and I thought this was going to be a problem last year, and it really wasn't. The Celtics were second overall in rebounding last year. This year, they're 18th. Right, like that's a pretty significant drop off, and then just in general, like when you look at, and I didn't watch the full Hawks and Celtics game from last week, but at the end of that game, and even when the Hawks kept it close in the first half of that game 2 weeks ago, where the Celtics eventually pulled away and won by 30. It was just the Hawks were just relentlessly attacking the basket, right? And this time it did end up working out in their favor. But you can see when you look at certain shot charts against the Celtics that teams are just getting to the basket. And without Queta being in there, I mean, Luke's been bad this year. I think he's been below average is probably the highest compliment that I can give Luke Cornett for this year. With Queta, at least you have some rim deterrence in there, but that's an area where the Celtics really need KP back and be able to have that KP and maybe Queta balance, because that's where teams are going to find success against the Celtics right now.
Yeah, so I mean the Celtics are small, man. I've said this before. Like the whole reason we got Porzingis is because we were too small, and we went out and got Porzingis to deal with teams like the Magic. And when you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're huge. They're a huge team. They have a small backcourt, but
Right.
otherwise they're a big team. And we're gonna need a lot of size to deal with them. It'll be interesting to see how Kata holds up against the Cavs and whether or not Missoula
Yeah, I'm
trusts
excited for
Kata
that
to go
matchup.
out there. Me too.
That's
I'm
gonna be a
really
fun one.
excited for that matchup. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, we might have some more on that here later, or before that game. I'm sure we'll have a little bit of a preview of that Cavs game, so we will have more for you on that. But Greg, it's just been a while since we've had a chance to
Yeah.
talk here. So I know you had your big brother in town, you had your nephew in town. You guys went to go see Wemby. I want to hear about the Wemby experience.
Okay, so when the Spurs, they don't really run the offense I was expecting them to run. It was a lot of Wemby like handoffs around the perimeter and Wemby popping instead of rolling and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Many people in the crowd were yelling at Wemby to get in the post. I was sitting in the section
Big
of like
topic on social media from me, just like not being locked in week to week, but just seeing Twitter as kind of my lens into the NBA.
Mhm.
Saw many clips of people talking about how they don't want Wemby shooting threes, and then of course I think he's had a 30-point game, a 40-point game, and a 50-point game since
Yeah.
that conversation started.
Well, I mean, it's just so easy for him to shoot the ball from distance. I get it. Like watching him live, it was like, oh, he has to work so hard. And it's such a physical pounding for him even to get into the paint because teams are just like bumping him the entire way up the court. They're just trying to be physical with him. So for him to actually make his way all the way to the paint, that's just like a lot more energy that he has to expend just to get there physically on the court. So shooting those walk-in three-pointers, I think it's just easier on him until his body kind of develops. So seeing it live, I kind of got it because he's still not in great shape. He's like his cardio is kind of terrible. He kind of labors up and down the court. Watching him live, it looks like he's exhausted the whole game. Maybe it's just because like the amount of energy a 7'5" guy has to expend to run like that. But seeing him live, it was the third time I've seen him live or second time. I think it was the third time I've seen him live. And it was just like, it was impressive. But at the end of the day, I feel like there's still so much room for growth. Even though he was like the best player on the court, I was like, this isn't even close to what he could be, which is exciting.
Crazy because he was like what 34-12 that night or something.
I honestly didn't even think he played that well, and he was kind of awesome. Yeah, but
which honestly, sometimes that's a sign of greatness, though, right? That like you're like, I don't even feel like this guy played great. This was to a degree part of like my dirty 30 theory is like, man, that guy didn't really have a great game, and all of a sudden you're like, he had 32 and 12. Like that didn't feel like that at all. And
exactly.
Year 2 Wemby is like, man, I don't think that guy had a great game, and he's 34, 12, and 3 blocks. Like that's scary to think of what that looks like when he gets efficient and understands, what his spots are, what his plays are. They figure out the system around him.
Yeah. Let's see. Other things. Castle. I really like Stephon Castle. He's one of those guys that I check in on the box scores and watch all of his possessions. Vassell was just coming back from injury. He had a whole contingent of fans there for his first game back. He got a really nice ovation coming off the bench for the Spurs. Didn't have his lift. I've seen Vassell play a couple times. I actually like him as a player, but he did not look like the Devin Vassell that I remember. Let's see. Anything else? San Antonio Zoo, not as impressive as I thought it was going to be. It's definitely nicer than Franklin Park. I'll tell you.
Have you been to the Austin Zoo?
I haven't. It's like a conservatory more than a zoo, though, isn't it?
I don't know. I haven't been. I've lived here 12 years. I've never been. So that's why I'm just maybe it's like a Texas zoo thing is kind of my question.
Well, I've heard the San Antonio Zoo is supposed to be really good, so I was excited to take my nephew there. Just wash the windows, San Antonio Zoo. Like you could barely see through like the glass. Yeah. They're so that everybody was kind of like peeking through like this. Like, can we actually see the animals? So just there were a lot of smudges on the glass. Just go ahead and watch the glass. Rhinos, huge. Rhinos are huge, man. I never really like have seen a rhino like that up close. It was one of the biggest things I've ever seen. I was a little disappointed. I didn't see the hippos. The hippos were hiding somewhere. Didn't see a lion. I saw one tiger. That was pretty cool. Let's
It's the tough part about the zoo. It's kind of like showing up to a Sixers game. You're not sure who's going to be there, right? Like, you don't know. You're going to see a Lion. You're going to see Embiid. You're going to see Paul George. I don't know. You just got to show up and find out they're going to be there.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. Okay. That's all I got.
All right. So yeah, a couple quick notes here on Ireland while I was out there. Simplest thing I can say, it's the greenest place I've ever been to. It sounds very stupid. It's intensely green, like just everywhere. Like is extremely green. Nice Ireland people, man. They're nice. They're easily the nicest people in my international travels that I've had, as far as just like trying to be helpful, wanting to be nice, wanting to have a conversation with you. Extremely nice people. Survived the left-hand side of the road. That I was.
Tell me about that. I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, man. So I was a little nervous going into it. Watched a couple YouTube videos, try to like help me get focused for it. But for the most part, it was easier than you would expect. It all feels wrong. Like everything in your body is like, this feels wrong. One of the things that's probably there's two things that are a little bit tough is one, it's just like it's kind of, I mean, to a degree, it's like driving around Boston, and like I know, like my wife Lauren is from Juarez, Mexico. She doesn't like drive. She doesn't like driving in Boston because like it feels like the roads are like really tight and windy. That's all of Ireland, right? So at least like Boston kind of prepared me a little bit for that. But you know how here when you're going north and south, like there's going to be very clearly two yellow lines that divide, each side of the road. In Ireland, it's mostly just like a white dotted line, but they also use a white dotted line when they have lanes. So there's times where first of all, you're making this wide right turn, which just feels like I'm going into oncoming traffic right now. And so making this wide right turn, and you're just like, I hope this dotted line is meaning that it's a two-way traffic and that it's not like another lane coming at me. So there's always just like that little bit of doubt in the back of your head. But for the most part, very, very successful, almost no hiccups. The scariest part was, so we left Austin at like 7 p.m. on a Wednesday night, got to Ireland on a Thursday at like 1 p.m. and then had to get a rental car and then drive immediately like 4 hours to the other side of the country. So my goal was, all right, I got to get in the car. I want to get this going here quickly because I don't want to be driving at night, like first time. And I'm like trying to figure this out. But once again, our Irish people, so fantastically nice. I spent like 30 minutes just because the guy would not stop talking at the rental car place, but I needed him to get through the paperwork. But he just wanted, he's like, oh, where you're going? He got so excited about where I was going and all this. And it was, really nice people, but not necessarily because of that. We were going to end up in this situation anyways, just based on timing. We ended up for probably the last 60 minutes to an hour and a half on the scariest road I've ever driven in my entire life. And so, Greg, remember, so for those of you listening, I'll tell a quick side story. So Greg and I have been best friends forever. I'm adopted. When I found my birth parents, Greg came out to Brazil. He met me, joined us. We met at the state is Minas Gerais, the capital is Belo Horizonte, and it's like 5-6 hours away from where my family actually lived. And so Greg and I meet these people who were basically just strangers at this point. And, we hop in the car with them, and it's daylight, and it's, we're all just trying to figure out like the language barrier, just trying to understand each other and like say hi, whatever. As we get probably about 4 hours into this, Greg, remember it got super dark out and we're on these like really sketchy looking roads. And we're like, I don't know what's around us. That's where I was, but Ireland and driving on the wrong side of the road. It was these super windy roads. Cars are whipping and it's blind turns. I had this like sensor in the car and like it's a super tight lane anyways. So I'm trying not to go too far left, trying not to go too far right. It's so dark. I have no idea what's on either side of me right now. I told Lorena, just go to sleep. Like this is not.
Yeah, the high beams on.
So I had the high beams on, but you're supposed to, like the way you're supposed to do it, right? Is if a car's coming at you, you take them off so that you're not blinding them, right? So I was doing it on and off because there was like cars coming and going. But honestly, like as I was turning the high beams on and off, like that I'm trying to think, like that contrast, right? Was like, oh shit, it's a turn. Like, cause it was like fucking with my ability to be able to see. So I was like, fuck it. These people are gonna have to deal with the high beams in their eyes because I can't, I'm gonna crash. So I just ended up going like high beams, like full on high beams the last like 45 minutes. And we eventually made it, but it was super sketchy and it was so dark. I had no idea what was on the left and right. I mean, it just felt like I was driving through like a spooky forest. The next day, when we got out and we had to drive on that same road to the wedding and then eventually to the hotel we were staying at. And I was like, holy shit, the ocean is to the right of me. I didn't even know
Oh
the
my God.
ocean. Like there was like it was like some farmland and then ocean, and then on the other side there's a bunch of houses, which I just assumed there was no houses. I couldn't see any
Oh, but you
houses
wouldn't
when
have
we were
driven
driving
off
up.
into the ocean.
No, we would have driven off into the
Okay,
ocean,
okay.
but it was right there, and I had no idea.
Yeah.
So it was pretty interesting from that regard, but overall successful. Hit the curb once, I think, like on a tight
Nice.
turn. Other than that, bump the mirror once. Other than that, we're all good. We're all good. So for having to drive across the country and back and a few other places on the wrong side of the road, I was pretty pumped with my performance, if I'm being honest.
Congratulations. Who was the MVP of the wedding?
Ooh, MVP. Oh, so MVP of the wedding. There were at this wedding. Shout out to our guy Martin McDonough and his now wife Shabelle O'Flaherty. Great wedding. The MVPs is gonna be co-MVPs. There were two separate Koreans at this wedding who got engaged. So
At
great
the
story.
wedding?
At the wedding. Yeah, at the wedding. The day after the wedding. But so that the next morning, one of the guys who he happened to be at my dinner table, he kind of told us he was super. So he was like, "I'm gonna I have a ring. I'm gonna propose at some point." And
were
we
they
didn't think it would
from
be the next
Korea
day.
or were they just Korean?
One of them's from Korea. One of them's adopted from Korea. So yeah, and it's the adopted guy just basically think of any Boston guy you've met. He would just fit in with us. And so, but it was just funny because what happened was he proposed in the morning, and his now fiance, she knows a bunch of people at the wedding. She's from Ireland as well, and so it was everyone throughout the day was in the town celebrating, congrats. And then later that night there was another party for the wedding couple at this bar. And someone went up to the other Korean guy at the wedding because there's only two of them. And she goes up to the other one. She's like, "Hey, I just wanted to say congratulations on the engagement." She was speaking to the wrong Korean guy, but through mistaking the Korean guy, found out that he also got engaged. And so both Koreans, despite talking to the wrong Korean, she got the right Korean. And then we got to celebrate two different Korean engagements on the second night of the wedding. So I gotta say that was probably our guy Mark's favorite part. He was very, very excited for them. So I feel like I'd say they were the co-MVPs of the wedding.
Love it. Great. All right, man. Anything else you want to talk about?
Nothing else here. A couple quick things here. Steve Buscemi also at the hotel that we stayed at. Didn't see him there, but he was there the night of the wedding. So that's just a fun fact that we have as well. The groom, our guy Mark. My favorite part for us was he was super drunk one night. Kind of grabbed me, pulled me to the side, and called me the Derek White of the party. That I'm the glue guy. So I was like, I love it. That's the best comment you could have given. And then when we got back from Ireland, I was watching the game on the couch, and Lorena looked at we were watching the Celtics Nets. Lorena was like, "You kind of do look like Derek White." And I was like, "Excuse me, Derek White looks a little bit like me. Let's just get it right. Who was the bald guy first?
Who was bald first? Exactly.
Who's bald and bearded first? It was your boy. And then the final part, obviously, we were sad not to have you there for many reasons, but this you got to go to Ireland, Greg. It's a land full of soup. Everybody loves soup over there.
Stews.
There was stews and soup abound everywhere. I was like, man,
think of that, man.
I didn't either until we got over there. There were multiple soups at the wedding. Everyone was eating stew during every different restaurant that we went to. They had a great chowder.
I had FOMO before this, and now I'm upset.
I know. I had to bring it up
last night.
Yeah, dude, you would have been in soup heaven here. So sorry that you had to miss it, but get out to Ireland at some point and go get your soup on is what I could say.
I had soup last night. I had a harvest chili soup from Trader Joe's with the French baguette, toasted, a little bit of butter. So I didn't even use a spoon. I just full on dipped the bread into the soup.
I like that. I like something dipped. All of the soups usually come with this that soda bread, that Irish bread. You can kind of dip in, throw a little butter on. Delicious. But all right, guys, that's it for today's Coffee and Celtics. We're gonna be back with more of these. We're gonna try and get this going here every Friday as much as we can here. Start to build a little bit of an audience. So appreciate you guys that tuned in and joining us here live. For those of you on the podcast, as always, appreciate you tuning in and listening to us. We'll have some more for you here leading up to the Celtics got a game game on the weekend here. A couple days off. Celtics have played a lot of games. Got a couple days off here. Play the Raptors on Saturday, and then Tuesday, big game against the Cavs. We will certainly have some coverage for you on that one. But that's going to do it for this episode here of Green with Envy. As always, appreciate you guys, and we will catch you later. Peace.
Missed free throw. Horford the rebound. Here's Pritchard. He loves these. Puts it up half court of the buzzer.
Every time I get this high, I lose my mind. It don't take much no more until I hit the floor. Every time I get this high, it's you I find. It don't take much no more until I'm at your door.
Coming to my core, baby. What can I say? You got me on the floor, you know I came to play. I know I shouldn't, but you seem to take my pain away. And every time I score, Jason Tatum fade away. I close my eyes and I'm floating your river. I call to see if you open, you know I hope you deliver. Every time you're getting close, I still be sick with the shivers. But there's nothing like that first time. I still remember the first time I saw you. You were looking so fine, chill like lo-fi, watch you go by. It was all I could do to say hi. I still remember the first time